Hey everybody, this is Perch. Here's an email we got talking a little bit or asking some questions about how comics were kind of created, crafted, the style of a publisher, and this is an interesting one. So it says, Hello Perch. I've been reading Fraction's Hawkeye, possibly the comic that kicked off the so-called modern era of Marvel, and I remembered something that then editor-in-chief Axel Alonso said. Marvel no longer has a house style. Previously, that artistic house style was for sure John Romita Sr.'s style, as well as the Buscema Bros. Uh, I've never heard it described. I don't know why I haven't heard it described that way. Anyway, it's funny. In essence, the Jack Kirby template. After the 90s, it was probably Jim Lee. Yeah, some Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld combo, sure. Having read that statement, I was less than thrilled, but then thought, hey, you're getting older. Why not make room for new and different things? Tom Brevoort, at the same time, comparing Marvel to the New 52, said they only offer chocolate, we have many flavors, referring this time to storytelling. Well, it'd be weird if he was referring to like race, right? Anyway, very soon, though, I think two things became apparent. Marvel didn't lose a house style, it lost an identity. You used to see random stuff, example, merchandising, and it screamed Marvel. Not anymore. Second, they settled for a new house style and story flavor, inevitably, that at the time, and probably still, was comedy and lighthearted stories where most things read and felt like Deadpool. My take, based on the similarities of his work as editor on the Spider-Man books for a couple decades ago, is that cohesion and oversight are not Alonso's strong points, to put it mildly. Yeah, that is a fact, yes. Do you think companies need a direction and a house style, or a more hands-off approach is beneficial? I think Marvel and DC need a house style. And I think if you're going to have a shared universe and you're going to go down that path, you need a house style. I think if you're Image, you don't need a house style, because Image is a different beast that is basically saying that they are going to, any creator can come in and do work there, and it's meant as a showcase for that creator's ideas. We do not need a house style applied to Ice Cream Man. You do need a house style applied to Spider-Man or to Batman. I would argue you need a house style applied to Vertigo as a whole. Not the same house style as DC has, but at least if you're going to create an imprint and a line, then you should have some guiding principles behind it if you're a big publisher. I do agree with you entirely. I remember that quote from Alonso, and I remember cringing kind of at the same way you did, that this was a terrible idea. Comics do need a house style. They need a house style because they live in a shared universe. And I think if you have this kind of everyone makes it up as they go tone, it's bad. I also agree with you that even though Marvel said they don't have a house style anymore, that they kind of did. That house style became the LOL so random kind of approach. But the problem is it wasn't maintained consistently. So unfortunately, I think not having a house style means that the most commonly used style becomes kind of the de facto style, and then everything else is measured against it. So if you bring in, like Ben Percy has talked about making some more hard-edged kind of comics, really paying tribute to some of the comics in the 90s. He's talked about kind of dipping his toe into those waters, and you see attempts with that with X-Force and Wolverine. However, if it's sitting right next to a bunch of silliness, and it's all living in the same universe, and Wolverine was in this silly comic, and now he's doing something very serious over in this other comic, you rate him by the silliness. That becomes the dominant kind of feel for the comic. It actually degrades what Percy is doing to some extent. The comic lowers in attention and in kind of impact to the kind of the house style, if you will, which is that silly Billy kind of nonsense style. And that's unfortunately, I think, number one, Marvel kind of slid into this. I think it slid into this because the movies were doing kind of lighthearted quips and other things. And in many cases, if you look at the movies, they've also been sliding more and more into that. Disney, Marvel has gotten very addicted to the idea of kind of the laugh track movie, if you will, where it's like, hey, let's do an unexpected joke to break the tension. It's like, man, people really like that joke. They said that was one of the favorite scenes in the movie. Remember that scene in Avengers where Hulk picked up Loki and he's like, he beat him around and it said puny God? That was funny. Well, for a lot of people, that was the best scene. When we do another movie, we should put in another scene like that. And hey, here's a crazy idea. Let's put in two scenes like that. Let's try and recapture that magic twice. And hey, we got Ant-Man coming out. Let's try and recapture that magic like 5 or 6 times. And so it goes. And this is the problem I think that you quickly get into with the movies is it's been infected by that humor, and that's it. And so I think the comics, in an attempt to kind of follow suit, they started putting in their own humor, and so then we got where we are today, where you have no key, no very clear editorial mandate, and so it's up to the whims of the creators, and the creators are, these writers who have come of age, during the MCU phase of movies, and so their entire, system of writing comics and telling these stories is off. By the way, that Tom Brevoort quote of like they have only chocolates and we, oh, shut up, Tom. I'm here's what a day. I hate the rivalry, and it's a video for another time. But the rivalry between DC and Marvel has always been punctuated with some good natured rivalry, and then just some prick statements where, for no apparent reason, they just shit on the other company, oftentimes doing the exact same things themselves. I think if you're Tom Brevoort overseeing a absolute mess and bragging about how you haven't gone to a comic shop for a year or read comics you got from that comic shop for a year, you're in no position to want to throw stones at who's got more variety in their product lineup. I mean the Marvel, if we're talking variety, look, you're the one right now publishing multiple versions of Spider Gwen and multiple versions of Miles Morales in this multiverse concept that you have absolutely driven into the ground. You just stop with that. Just no, absolutely no. Anyway, I look. I think that a house style is very important. I think you need to have a kind of barometer or bellwether to your comics. You need to have a core so people know what your shared universe is all about, and it gives you a kind of a north star to point to when you're doing comics. I think that if you ignore that, if you instead decide to just kind of randomly let everyone. I mean, that's how you got the continuity mess we have. That's how you've got, Spider-Man over here trying to portray Kraven the Hunter as a, psychopathic, super, omega threat. And you've got Squirrel Girl over there, portraying him as a wacky vegan, and who's got a heart of flowers. And I mean, that this is why none of this helps. It doesn't help sell comics. It doesn't help keep anything consistent, and it creates just a mess. And I think that's absolutely where things currently sit. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. I think you have Image for that. If you want to truly break away from continuity and you want to truly give the creators the freedom to tell whatever story they want to tell, cool. That's Image, and let them tell it. And they've got their own characters, their own universe, and they can do anything they want with it. They can write this stuff up and again, anything you want. But if you're going to, utilize established characters that have lived in a comic line for 50 years or so and have a massive history, then I think you need to conform, at least to some extent, to this, to this history, to what's been done before, and that necessitates a house style. So that's my opinion. How about you? Now, let me know in the comments below. You think artistic freedom, creative freedom is more important? It's better to let the artist. By the way, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think a house style and some basic guidelines can still give you tons of creative freedom. I think what it does is create boundaries so you don't wreck the universe in the process. So I think I'm in favor of it, but let me know what you think. Where things go. I know that even some of the Image creators, when they broke apart, the classic Image 6, decried the house style as being unnecessarily kind of stiff and restrictive. Ironically, they immediately put in the extreme house style and the Wildstorm house style, and other writers and artists came along and kind of aped the same things that they did. And Marvel, meanwhile, continued to try to push a house style to look like the guys that they left. So there's a lot of irony there. Anyway, thanks for listening.